Hi, and welcome to the tutorial about how to work with your pictures in the softwares on our photo studio. We're gonna take a look into photos that we shot yesterday, and we're gonna look into the whole process of how to pick your pictures, how to rate them, how to work in the module develop, how to do some edits in the module editor, and then also how to export the pictures, what is good for saving them, how you can save the progress, and we're gonna peek into how to edit them for Instagram, since it's not very supporting if it comes to the format of the pictures. So we're gonna look into all of this. We're going to start with the rating of the pictures and the whole process of picking your pictures, because when you get from the photo shoot home, you usually get hundreds of pictures, sometimes 100, sometimes 500, depends, everybody's different in this, and you want to get through them and you want to do some selection. So the best way, or the way that I use that suits me best, is that I rate them with stars. You can use from 1 to 5 stars. And it's very easy to do this rating because all you need to do is press the number on your keyboard. So for example, if I really like this picture, I want to rate it 5 stars, I just press 5 and it is rated. Usually you've got everything sorted here by name. But when you rate the pictures, you can sort them by rating, and then it's easier to grab the cluster of rated pictures and move them somewhere. Because that's usually what you want to do. You only want to move the pictures that you want to work with, and the rest you can just either erase or whatever you want to do with it. So since I like this picture, I say I rate it 5, and then there's this picture which isn't that great, so I still want to maybe work with it, so I rate it 3 stars. Now, if I change my opinion and if I want to do the rating differently, all I need to do is press a different rating. So like I can decrease it to 2, I can completely erase the rating by pressing 0, or I can change my opinion and press 5 to rate it 5. So all of those are possible. And once you're done with your rating and you want to transfer your pictures, then I recommend going back to browser and sort by rating. And then, as I said, you're gonna have all the rated picture clustered together up here, and you can just mark them and move them wherever you want. So one picture that we're gonna work with today is a picture that is very dark. That's because why I took this picture very dark is I wanted to have the sky behind her clear and not oversaturated. If I took this picture with a bit more light, then I would not probably be able to salvage the clouds and everything from the sky behind her. Now, this isn't a problem if you've got a full frame camera. If you've got the old DSLR, then it might be a bit of a problem salvaging something from it. But you can certainly at least try if it's gonna work or not for you. And here in the software, you can actually do a lot. Like you can see that from this, I can get through this. And it's only a process that's happening in the develop module. You don't even need to go to editor for this. So what I want to start with is I would like to add some exposure into this part of the picture. So I will grab a filter brush, and if you want to adjust the size of the filter brush, then what you can do, if you don't want to do manual here, you can just press shift and then roll your wheel on the mouse, and it's changing the size. So what you can do, you can apply this brush on this part of the picture where you want to change the exposure. And if you accidentally get over the area you wanted to brush, you can remove from the mask this stroke using this little remove from mask button. If you want to see the blue area where you've applied the brush, you just show the mask here, and now you can just remove it from wherever you want. You can of course change the opacity and density so that you remove it completely or just partially, that's up to you. And now that I have the brush applied, I might apply it a bit also here. I am going to be a bit rushy today because first of all, I want you to understand how to use all the functions, and I am not gonna do it properly because we don't have time for that. But what's important for you to know is that every picture is very different. So when you start editing the pictures, you need to know how the functions are working, but there is no strict manual of how to do it. It's very different in the case of every picture. So I'm just trying to explain to you how all the functions are working. And once you grasp how it works, then you can do anything with your pictures however you want. So now we have marked this area, and what we're going to do is that we're going to add a little bit of an exposure. Exposure is very flat though. It's just going to take everything you've got on that picture and it's just going to make it more bright. If you want a bit more smart tool, then there in the tone curve is something called Luma, which is my favorite tool so far. And it is a way smarter tool to do it. It can only highlight your light or just the shadows. It's up to you what you choose. You can work with the whole curve as you like, and it is a bit more sensitive to the light and the shades, and it can really work a bit more softly and gently. It is not as flat as the exposure tool. So if you're unhappy with what you did, you just double click the little gray button right here and everything gets undone. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna highlight a bit of the light spots, and as you can see, from a complete darkness we are progressing somewhere. Now be careful. For example, here you can see where the brush is ending. So if you're doing this, you've got to do it really carefully, and you've got to really like work with the edges and work a bit more carefully on the details. So right now I have added some light into this part of the picture. Now the one more thing that I want to highlight a bit is her face. So for her face I'm going to use the radial filter because it is a simple shape, so I can only like apply this radial filter on a face. What I want to work with is the gradient width, because if you actually make that higher, then the difference between the outer and the inner part of this filter will be quite smooth. It will not be rough. So what I recommend is putting this a bit higher. I would not be afraid of using the whole potential of 100 points. And now only within this filter I'm gonna just add a bit of exposure, or I can again use the Luma curve, and I'm gonna highlight her face, which is very important. Now here the difference in between her face and her neck is a bit too big, so you can play with it some more. You can add more filter brush, you can just add mask, set it to the default settings, and like work a bit here on her décolleté. The possibilities you have are quite big, and again I'm just trying to explain how to use certain tools so it's not a mystery for you what you can work with in Sonne. So after you're done playing with all the lights and everything, you can go back to the setting of the whole picture. Now we've salvaged her face from the complete darkness, so as you see the difference is quite big. Now again, when you're working with a brush, be careful about those bright spots. You really need to be quite careful. So what I can do now is to adjust the whole picture. So I'm probably gonna add a little bit of exposure, and I'm probably gonna use the Luma again just to help the lights a bit. Maybe right now I feel like the face is a bit too bright, so I can go back to the radial filter, because I can go back to everything I did and just adjust it or redo it. I can just lower the exposure a bit so it's a bit more blended in. What I like to use when I have a sky in the picture is dehaze the whole picture, because when I dehaze the whole picture, the sky gets a bit more clear. It also gets a bit more colorful, and especially when you're using the golden hour and you're working during the sunset, then the upper part of the sky is usually blue and the lower is yellow or orangish, and this combination is very, very beautiful. So the dehaze is helping with that, and then you can play with all those parts. You can add a bit of a contrast, of course, or you can actually take it a bit down. Be careful with the contrast, because when you're using and adding contrast, and also you're adding a bit of saturation. You can add lights, you can add a bit of a white point. All of those are quite self-explanatory, and what I recommend is just play with it and see what it does, because there is no better way to learn how to use all those tools than just working through it and experimenting and discovering it on your own. If I want to change the white balance, that is one thing that you can actually set in the camera when you're shooting, but if you're not happy with it when you see the final pictures, it is quite easy to change it in the software, in the After Effects. So you can just lower the temperature a bit. In that case, the blue gets a bit more bluish, which is pretty nice. When we were shooting this picture, we were using a reflector, so that gave a bit of a light back into her face. And also sometimes the reflector gives a little bit of a pretty little glimpse in the eyes. You cannot see it here, but you will see it in the next picture we're going to work on. So next step, what we want to do is we probably want to adjust the colors a bit. That is quite easy to do. In the color shift, you can take the hue, the saturation, or the light, or the luminance. You can change it quite easily. You just grab this little thing and you just click the color you want to change. Now I'm holding the left button on my mouse, and I can swipe it right or swipe it left to add the saturation in only the blue colors, or only green colors, or only yellow colors. It is up to you what you want to change. Sometimes it can happen that you, for example, just want to change the orange in here, but you don't want the orange to change in her face. So in that case, what I recommend is to apply another filter, either brush or the radial, and you can work with those colors locally as well. As you see, when I grab this filter and I just add another mask and I put it right, for example, here, then I can change the colors only here, and it will not be affecting anything outside the filter. So you can do a lot with the colors in here. The color shift is just one setting. Then there you've got a split toning. You can add, for example, a blue color into all the shadows. So you've got the shadows option, the light option, and the master. The master does the whole thing, the whole picture. It is not specifically for just shadows or lights. You only grab this point and you drag it around. So you are adding greens right now, you're adding blues right now, and if you're not comfortable with this dragging system, then you can just click here into the shadows and you can do it right here more manually. If you are unhappy about the changes, you don't have to try to target the middle again. You just double click anywhere in the circle and it just gets back to the default. So, and another thing that you can do is shift primary colors. Now you've got red, green, blue that is everywhere in your picture. So what you're gonna do when you're gonna move these is you take everything in that picture that contains the color red or green or blue, and you're gonna change the saturation or hue of everything that contains that color. So it's a little bit more massive on the picture. It can change the whole vibe of the picture. You can, for example, do the pastel colors vibe if you're using these, but be careful because it is again very flat and it's going to influence the whole picture. So as you see right now, she lost the color in her face and her arms, and it's a bit pinkish now. If I move it here, then again it's influencing her face. It can go almost to green, so be very careful about those. But those are the 3 stages of the color changes that you can use. They are very simple to use and very efficient. So if you've got some noise in the picture, for example, we do have a noise here because we were working with a very dark area. You can reduce the noise by adjusting by moving this. You can either reduce the noise only in the brightness or in the colors. That is up to you. Be careful if you use this a bit too much, then she's gonna look like a wax figurine. You don't want that to happen. So maybe if that happens, just leave a bit of a noise there. It doesn't really matter. It's sometimes it is even wanted because it reminds of the old pictures. So noise isn't necessarily bad. What I really think is bad is when you've got the unbelievable skin texture, the wax-like skin texture. So you can reduce the noise a bit here, and then if it somehow happens that you don't have the picture completely sharp and you want to sharpen it a bit, then you can adjust that here in the sharpness menu. You just add a bit of a strength, you just add a bit of a radius, but really just a little bit of a radius, and it gets a bit more sharpened. If it's too problematic though, then if it's too problematic, then you are probably not going to be able to fix the picture, because once it's very much not sharp, then it cannot be fixed. So, one last thing that we're gonna discover here in the develop menu or the develop module is exposure or color vignette. Vignette is a pretty thing and it can really add to your picture some interesting depth. Why I like to use the vignette? That's because when I am shooting people, when I'm working on portraits, then the most important thing on that picture is that person. That person is usually in the middle. So that person should have the most light, the person should have the most attention. If I add vignette, then the edges of the picture gets darker, therefore they somehow redirect the attention to the middle, which is important if you're shooting people. So for our example here, we could use the vignette. The exposure vignette is a bit more aggressive and it can be a bit more dark, and especially here it's a problem because this edge of the picture is very bright and very colorful. So with the vignette it gets a bit weird. So you can use just a color which is a bit more gentle, which is a bit more subtle, or you can use a special vignette that's in the editor module, but we're gonna get that in a little while. So right now we got from here to here, which isn't really bad. Now, if you're happy with everything here, you can move to the editor, but be careful because once you start with your edits in editor module, then you cannot really go back to the develop. If you go back to the develop, you have to save what you've got in the editor and it will be created as its own picture. And you're gonna get back only to the raw picture that you were working with at the beginning. And also, yes, I'm talking about the raw picture because what I really recommend is when you're shooting, use the raw format, because it has much more data than the JPEG. It will allow you to work with your colors and your lights a way more than just a JPEG. That does not contain as much information as you would need. Well, so in the editor, one thing I want to show you is the vignette I was talking about, because here in adjustments, when you find the vignette and you click the automatic mask, then this vignette is quite smart. It will find the light spots on the picture and brighten those, and it will add a bit more shades into the dark spots. So if I apply this vignette here, you can see before and after. It is right now, it's brightening the sky, it's brightening her face, it's brightening the blossoms, but it is not brightening the dark spots. Those are getting darker. So you apply that, and that's where we're gonna end this picture, and we're gonna move into another one. I want to move into a bit more close-up picture because I would like to show you the retouching tools that are those are really good in the editor module. You've got several. I'm going to explain to you what they do, and I'm going to tell you which I'm using the most. If I want to, for example, remove some of the little spots on her face. So I can either use the healing brush or I can use the clone stamp. Now the healing brush is a bit more smart. The healing brush is actually considering the surrounding when you're applying a cloned texture, and it is trying to blend it in. But the clone stamp is doing exactly what you tell it to do. It is not trying to be smart, it just simply copies what you give it to it. So a healing brush is a bit more smart, and that's great because when I'm, for example, working on the forehead, then it is blending in the healthy texture that I'm copying with no problems. But should I get closer to, for example, the eyebrow, it will start doing these dark spots, these weird things. That's because it's considering, as I said, the surrounding, and it's cloning it a bit. So right now it's considering the eye brush, cloning it into where we're directing it, and this is happening. So be careful when it starts to happen, then you just need to switch to the clone stamp. When you switch to the clone stamp, it will not do this effect. It will just do what you tell it to do. But be careful, because then the clone stamp is a bit more clumsy. What I recommend is opacity and density to a bit lower numbers. Definitely have blur pretty high in case of both of those tools, and it can help you fix the face. It can help you fix textures and those those bags under the eyes. It can help you retouch the face, but be careful with the retouching, because if you're gonna make it too smooth, then again the person is not gonna look like a person anymore. So what I recommend is being very careful about this. Now that's retouching the face, but if you, for example, have some litter on the ground or some person in the background, some little elements or even bigger elements that you want to remove from the picture, then it's perfectly doable with the clone stamp. Now, dodge and burn. Dodge and burn is, those are great. Those are great brushes for highlighting and for darkening some parts of the picture. So what I like to do, how I like to use this brush is I like to highlight the eyes. If I set the range to light and I'm using the dodge, then what I can do is highlight the eye, and especially this little reflection of the reflector, because it makes the eyes sparkle. So that's why I like to use dodge. What you can do is also take an effect brush, set it to saturation, and you can add a bit of a saturation into those eyes. In here you cannot really see much of a difference, but if you've got, for example, blue-eyed model, it can add a bit of the spark into the eyes as well. Back to the dodge though. A dodge can be also used for highlighting the parts of the face that should be highlighted. Those are the spots above the eyebrows, nose, cheeks, and the chin. Those can be a bit highlighted with the dodge, but be careful because dodge and burn is adding saturation to your picture, so you've got to be really smooth with it. It is better to use when you are using the studio lights, but it is also usable in the natural light. But again, you've got to be careful about that. For the burn, I like to use the burn to highlight the eyes and the eyebrow a bit. You can actually make the makeup a bit more visible. When you are highlighting the eyes with the dodge, then it is nice to brighten a bit of the middle, and then the edges of the pupil you can darken, and that makes this beautiful effect of the very, very stunning eyes that are really sucking you in and are very hypnotizing. So, dodge and burn, you can lighten or darken certain places in the picture. Clone stamp and healing brush for the retouches and removing things you don't want in the picture. Then you can use the effect brush that has different settings. You can locally add brightness or contrast, saturation, or things like that. And then there is the iron. Now, I am very careful about the iron and barely ever use it. But if you feel like you want to, well, iron the face a bit, you can use it, but be careful because if you use it too much, then again, you're gonna have a wax figure instead of a human person on the picture. So you can apply it, but be very careful with it because it can be aggressive and it can make your model look like she is inhuman. So those are the basic things I wanted to show you in Editor. Editor module is huge and you can do a lot of things within it, but the tutorial about Editor would be for several hours. Now, these are the basics that you want to use while shooting portraits or even anything else. Once you know how to use your tools, you can actually do whatever you want and you can be very creative about it. So now we're going to go into how to save your picture. Now you have several options. You can choose JPEG, PNG, TIFF, or anything you want, anything you need, or you can use the .zps. That will save your progress. Every progress that you did. For example, if you had layers, if you had some huge adjustments, if you would be working on it for hours or something, you can save the whole progress when you use this .zps. Now, it will really save everything, so you can just close it and the other day and the next day you open it and you can change everything. You can go back to later, so you can retrace everything, you can go steps back, so you can do whatever you want. But be careful because when you're saving this particular format, then it is taking a while. It usually takes a while because it is saving a lot of information. So don't be afraid, don't be scared. It can really take a while. So you'll probably be staring at the loading wheel for a little bit, but it is worth it because it will really save all the progress and you can get back to the picture and redo everything that you did during the editor module. It is not connected to the develop module. So all of those are usable for you. All of those formats are usable. You just pick the one, you name your picture and you save it. Now, when you are saving it, you can choose the shape equality, you can choose the color depth, you can choose whatever you want, apply it, and then just confirm it with apply. And now it's saved. Now, sometimes what I like to do is when I've got the picture completely done, I go back to the develop and I try to give it some final touch. It is just a small adjustment usually because we are working with a JPEG now, so the changes are not as possible and smooth as when it was raw. But I can go back and I can think maybe I can change the tone curve a bit, you know, just to add a bit of final touches. Just to add a bit of a tone curve, however you feel like, but just a very small adjustment, as I said. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can just go there, try to apply it. Sometimes it really makes the picture better, sometimes it doesn't. It is it's just a little trick that I sometimes use when I'm done with the picture and I want to see if I can go a bit further, but it's really just a bit further. Now, when I'm in the develop menu, I can also show you how to export your pictures, because if you want to export them, for example, sized for a social networks or sized for web, you can do it here because we have set the correct sizes for the social networks and the web, and you just click the social network and you just export it. It will create its own folder and you will find the pictures done there, exported in the size that you want it. For example, what I like to do is when I have some pictures chosen and I want to send them to the model as a previews, I just click them and I exported them as a preloaded quick previews. And she can go through them, tell me which she likes and which she doesn't. It works perfectly. Or for example, when I'm done with the pictures and I just want to export them all in the correct size for the web, then again, I click those done pictures. For example, here we've got this done picture and we export it in the size for web or social networks, whatever suits us most. So you've got the options of saving it in all the formats we were seeing a while ago here in editor, or you can just easily export them in some pre-sized format in the develop. And this picture has frame. That is because the Instagram is not really very supportive if it comes to formats other than square. Now, usually we don't have pictures in square, so that's why we've added this little feature so that you can actually add this little frame quite easily in the software and you don't have to download any applications into your phone to do it for you. When you're in the editor, all you need to do, and I'm going to show this to you on some other picture, all you need to do is go to Adjustments and Canvas Layer Size. You open it, you set the width to the same amount as the height. Therefore, you get the square. Now, you can either fill it with the blurred image. You can set the blurring strength right here to a lot or to a little. You can just change the zoom. You can change the color blending and everything, up to you. Or you can fill it with just a color, black, white, whatever you find, and you can set it in the color picker. So this is the best way to actually prepare the picture for Instagram. You can use it yourself, you can send it to the model or the client so that, you know, they don't crop your picture when posting it on the social networks. You apply it, you save it, and you're done with that. So that's a little feature that we added for you to use Instagram a bit more easily afterwards to show your pictures. What I want to show you next is when you are done in the develop module and you've worked through some nice setting, you have created yourself a little preset. For example, here I've got a picture that has some settings on it. So now I can take the setting from the picture and I can apply it to more pictures. I have two options how I can do it. Either I can press Shift, and then here you can see all to apply to all files appears. So if you click that, then all the pictures in that folder will receive this preset that you have created. Or I can just click this, choose adjustment to copy, click panel here, and I can choose all the attributes that I want to pick and I want to apply. I copy, now they are saved, and I can just go to this picture. I can just press paste right here, and the setting gets applied on it. Of course, it doesn't always work for all your pictures because the colors are a bit different due to the light gets changed. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for you, copying those settings is really easy. You can either apply them to everything when you press Shift, or you can just apply them to certain pictures when you go through this copy paste or a little panel right here. So you can also save this preset for later if you really like it. You can go here to this presets menu and just click this little plus, and you just create the preset. When you create the preset, you just name it, and once you name it, then it's saved there for you forever. And whenever you get back to it, whenever you open any picture, you can use this preset that you have created, because it will be waiting here for you in the user section. So you just click it and it gets applied to anything you'd like. So you can work with those presets, or you can use the presets that we have on our website for free that we are offering to download. It is a lot of presets that you might actually find quite adorable, and you can use them on your pictures. Now, it is a lot, and I know that it's a lot of functions, and it's a lot of things that you got to get through, but really don't be afraid of it. You can actually get through it when you practice a lot. Again, there is no manual about how to edit pictures, because each picture is very different. I just showed you some of the aspects that you can use in the software. And when you actually get to use them a couple of times, you get to understand them really properly, and then you can imagine how to use them for your next picture. So don't really get scared if it's too much. Just keep on working and it will get better, I promise. For now, I really hope that this helps you get through the basics and that it gets you motivated to actually go and shoot. As I said, you can find the video about how to do the actual photo shoot on our YouTube as well, because I'm giving some advices there about how to talk to the model, how to use the light and everything. So whatever you feel like you're missing during the photo shoot, maybe I will be able to help you. And if you will have any further questions, then you can of course ask us at the support. Now, all that I can say is don't get demotivated if it's not perfect at the first try. Just keep on working, keep on shooting, and it will get better. And thank you very much for watching, and I really hope this is going to be helpful, and I will see you next time.